All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. And welcome to our CEO podcast for Webinar Wednesdays. And Anthony, you want to go ahead and get things started?
You know, I'd love to. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second podcast. We are learning our way as we go through this. Our intent of this is really to be a great interactive question time where you can ask us anything about what's going on in the industry, what you need to know, challenges may have. Today's agenda is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to give an update on the virus, talk a little bit about the announcements that were made from the last time we were here, and see if there's any questions on them. And then I wanted to invite our government affairs chairs to our call today. They guide us and they lead our effort to really help us make sure that we're on track to help the industry. And they're live operators just like many of you. And I just kind of want to, have you hear from them and educate me on what's it like to lead an industry while trying to run your business and live a life during a pandemic. And get a chance to say thanks for the incredible work that they're doing, being volunteers and making sure we're on track. But we'll get to them in a minute. I'm going to, in theory, share my screen and see how good that I'm getting. And I want to talk a little bit about let's see here. I had it up a second ago. There it is. All right, share. Lex is my test case. Can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about just what's been going on. And the virus was really taking a big spike. And the governor made some announcements. Weren't all the things that I would do if I were king of the world, but I'm not king of the world, if you hadn't figured that out. And we do have to abide by them. Some of them are frustrating. Some of them we understand. Some of them are compromises to a worse scenario. And I want to talk a little bit about the virus in a minute. But 2 Thursdays ago, the governor did announce that alcohol service at all our establishments end at 10 o'clock. That vending and interactive game areas, including billiards, darts, and video games, are prohibited until we hit the last phase, which is phase 4. For restaurants, effectively, he moved us from phase 3 back to phase 2. So it was a little more of a relabeling, but the gains we got by going from 2 to 3 in table size and occupancy were reduced back down. Bar seating, which was really taverns, breweries, wineries, distilleries, got impacted, but then got unimpacted a little bit. And we have Katie on here if in case there's questions on that one. And then indoor dining was limited to members of the same household until phase 4. I will tell you the overall theme of these was that we were seeing massive spikes in post-high school to 29, and a lot of it was happening around socialization. And so outside of this, the governor did other things as well that he felt was targeting indoor socialization. And while some of this we're frustrated by because we feel like we got 95% compliance in the industry doing great things, we were very much facing by the recommendations from some health officials that the industry needed to close completely again on all indoor seating. And it was one of those odd, thank God we didn't close completely, but also, dang, some of these things are frustrating. So I can talk more about that in a bit. I want to go to another thing I'd like to show our listeners today. And that, let's see, new share. There we go. And I want to talk about a little bit on the virus itself. And if you can see my screen there, this is the spike that we've been occurring over June and July since we've opened in phase 2 and a handful of counties going to phase 3. And this spike here in June over the 4th of July weekend is what caused the governor to start moving towards the mask mandate and make the mask mandate announced since we last talked. Unfortunately, the mask mandate did not have the immediate impact that the governor was hoping for, and the spike continued for another 3 weeks. And he felt he had to take additional action, and that action was what I just discussed. I'm an optimist. I have to be, otherwise this job would just, I think, destroy me. But the good news is the mask mandate has had about a 3-week time to take effect, and it is now starting to come back down. And so for about 8-9 days now, we're seeing the virus come back down, and that's really good news. I think my only bummed news is people are going to think it's because of the rollback, but if it takes 3 weeks to see an impact, we know that we won't really see if the governor's announcement 2 Thursdays ago actually lowered the virus case for another couple of weeks. But the reason I do say this is good news is I was afraid if that last announcement didn't work, the governor's next option would have been to close this completely. And it was just something that I was not willing to accept. And so I'm very thankful to see the numbers come down. So Lex, I'm going to stop sharing and pause and see if there's any questions out there that people have for me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. We don't have any questions in the queue just yet.
Okay. I would say the most common questions I'm getting are around two aspects of this. Outside of the why do we keep getting picked on in hospitality, which I think is another answer completely. One, on households, how do we enforce it? And the association has made a poster for you that you can simply put in your window to notify guests to let you know if they're in more than 2 households and that you're willing to sit them in 2 different tables. Or you can have your host or hostess simply ask, great to have you here tonight. The governor is asking everyone to sit in separate households. Are you a part of one household tonight, or would you like us to sit you separately? I know that's an awkward question, and a lot of people are struggling with that question in the world. So hopefully the poster is making that easy. You don't have to make them prove they're in different households or the same household. You don't have to push them on it. It's a simple notification, making them aware, honor system kind of deal. What the governor is attempting to do on this is stop indoor socialization. So stop big groups of parties meeting indoor to meet and spreading the virus, and instead of having that happen outdoor. The other big question that I'm getting is the 10 p.m. Alcohol cutoff just like the 2 a.m., or is it just that I can't sell any after 10 p.m.? And functionally, you should be treating it just like you used to treat the 2 a.m. Liquor cutoff, and move from there. And so if you were, however you used to handle the 2 a.m. Closing time is exactly probably your procedures you should handle the 10 p.m. closing time. So those are kind of the main questions I'm getting. I know some of those answers are frustrating, and I get it, but they are what we have. And so I want to make sure we're also articulating where we're at from there. Any other questions on virus or on the industry?
I do have one question. We have, can limited service hotels operate their buffets and salad bars too, or is this a new guidance strictly limited to restaurants?
The new guidance is food service, and so whatever would impact the restaurant would be similar to what you would see in your hotel.
Okay. Okay.
And or if you were another kind of business that had restaurant service or food service, it would be similar.
I have a question from Brett. Is indoor seating at a counter in a diner in Squim still not allowed?
Well, in Squim it's allowed, but every other city not. No, I'm kidding. Welcome from Squim. No, any counter seating is not allowed at this time under the new rules. So yeah, if you're a counter, the same. We're back down again, and let's talk about what happens next. In that, what happens next is the association is going to focus on getting this virus down, and that's really the focus of the governor's office. When we hopefully start getting that virus down, and we start seeing the number closer to that 25 per or on their way there, what we really would like to do is start coming back to the governor's office and asking for some more reasonable regulations. So we do have a list of things that our government affairs chairs here are collecting and debating and preparing, but we're not really going to start pushing for those until the virus numbers come down. Because until then, I think what we're really trying to do is convince health officials and the public that we can operate safely, that we can we can trust it to be open. If there's another spike, I think a full shutdown, we all would agree, would be disastrous to our economy, to hospitality, and small business. And you're going to see us do, if I share my screen again, and I'll show a fun thing, you're going to see us do some things we're not normally doing as an association, but we are launching our mask campaign, and I think that would be it. Let me see if I can share my screen really quick, and I will go to our mask campaign. So you will be seeing us and our partners in AWB and the realtors really start focusing on how do we get people to be safe and get compliance. And so these will be social media screens that will be launched today for you to grab in your business. We're going to have 3 taglines. Your mask today saves my small business tomorrow. We're also going to have your mask today saves my job tomorrow for your staff, or for you, for that matter. And then small business keeps Main Street open for community leaders. And we want to get away from the messaging that's been out there that's been more political, or it's all about your health. And we really kind of want to get people to understand this is one of those scenarios where their safe behavior impacts a small business. It can literally save a small business, or it can literally save thousands of jobs. And so more inspirational, encouraging people to do these kind of things than finger waving or politicize. And so we're going to try to keep the politicians away from this messaging, because it's not about politics. This is about reopening our economy, saving small businesses, and again, not what you'd normally see us get involved in, but it's been made clear to us that the best thing we can do to get all of you back to phase 3 is get this virus back down. Lex, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. If a brewery, distillery, winery can source food, can they alter their liquor license and have customers indoors?
We have been working with the Liquor Control Board and the governor's office to simplify the original announcement. And that's why I wanted to have our special guest, Katie Doyle, here with us. Katie, are you there in the background at all? No, Alexa, are you able to unmute Katie?
Yeah, she is. Let me try to. Okay, so Katie, you can talk now.
Katie, I'm going to let you tackle this one because I know that you've been working yourself to the bone trying to make this easier for our members. What's the latest on this style of question?
So currently, as of last Friday, the Liquor and Cannabis Board and the governor's office worked together to allow any brewery, winery, distillery, or tavern that already had a food permit, so they already had a a menu in some capacity to continue indoor operations. If you do not already have a food service permit from your local county health department, and you would like one, you'll need to go through that process with your county health department and have a menu that has minimum food service requirements, which have been altered during this pandemic. So before, they had a pretty limited selection of food items. They've now added things such as substantial hors d'oeuvres, which would include things like charcuterie. Because of this temporary allowance to just need a food permit, you actually do not need to go through the license conversion process if you are one of those 4 establishments. The license conversion process is a much more lengthy process and has costs associated. While there are costs associated with getting a food permit through your county health department, we're hoping that those are less burdensome than having to go through a full license conversion. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, if the guest has a follow-up, let us know, and we'll be glad to answer that. Lex, are there any other questions out there?
Yeah, we have one from Julie. What are your top priorities when the virus numbers come down? That's part 1 of the question. And is there going to be more funding available from the PPP or other sources coming for small businesses? Most of us have used our PPP money.
Well, let me tackle the last one first. Hopefully, Congress is being Congress right now, and it's a little bit chaotic. So last night I heard it may not happen. This morning CNN says they're closer to a deal again. So if you're watching this podcast, as many you will do as after today, today is the August 5th. I would rather go ahead and let the news of the day of when you're listening to it carry it. So I think the current anticipation is maybe as soon as Friday there could be a deal. But that being said, it's in flux, and what's in and out of that bill is moving. I will tell you we are advocating for relief for our industry that has been impacted. And there are a lot of ideas out there, from the Restaurant Act to extending PPP and other creative ways on tax abatement. There's a lot of things in the mix. I think what we're really trying to send a unified message to Congress on is our businesses need help. And PPP was supposed to address a short time frame. It's clear that time frame is going to be extended. And if this is going to be the last relief bill, Main Street, small business, lodging and hospitality and restaurants really do need another round of help, or a bridge to try to get to this other side. So, Julie, I think the answer is, in the moment, I don't know what that mix is going to look like, because it's very, very fluid. But hopefully, when you get your email from us next week, it will have the details of another relief package. We did do an action alert asking for Congress to support the AHLA and the National Restaurant Association's efforts. And we're prepared to do another one if we feel like that will be the nudge that it needs. Lex, what else can I help answer out there?
There is one question that we got. With outdoor dining, what are the smoking laws? Can an establishment allow outdoor smoking now?
I was not prepared for that question. Katie, are you still there? I give my knee-jerk answer to that one. I would think the rules would be the same as they were before, but I'm trying to think of any reason why that would have changed under this. Katie?
So, Anthony, you are correct. The rules have not changed in terms of smoking areas. You still need to be 25 feet away from entrances. You cannot serve in smoking areas, so you can't have a smoking area where you have a server bringing drinks or food out to that area. And if you do have a smoking patio that is adjacent to your building, there needs to be there needs to make sure that there's no way that smoke is going into your building. So no vents or anything outside that would create any issues for your indoor patrons.
I will tell you that actually smoking, and I do want to flag this one. I've never seen a time before where so much policy is decided by a breadth of social media pictures. And so one of the things that is biting us is your guests, our guests, going outside to smoking areas beside the building and being in groups of 30 smoking. And there's a picture taken of your logo and all these guests standing around smoking, and that actually was a part of the conversation for a while. So if we're trying to prevent future headaches, I'm just flagging that one for you. Don't end up on social media because you and the 17 other places are getting their picture taken, and it's getting passed on to policy makers. And if you're just smoking angry, I think that's okay, and that'll be fine. So what other good questions we got out there, Lex?
That is it that we have for now. I'll let you know once we have more that pop up here.
Okay. I don't know how many people remember this theme song. Little odd couple there. Well, we kind of have, I would call them the odd triple. But I love our industry so much. And leading our members' government affairs efforts have been 3 volunteer people from literally around the state. And I was thinking about, we're so blessed to have them on. We've got Brian Marino, Russell Brent, and Ron O. And while you guys are phenomenal in your care for the community, you think about the 3 of you coming together to lead the industry, and you're very, very different. Brian, your family story and your father's story of coming to the United States and getting started in our industry and setting you up, and being from quick service and being from rural Eastern Washington. And trying to manage a brand and state regulations and the chaos of all this. And Ron, you're a phenomenal leader among hoteliers and past president of the Korean Hotel Association. Really been a great advocate for multiple communities for a long time, and been very, very passionate about lodging and the opportunities that lodging provides, and helping me as we've made this transition. I got to meet you when you were on the board of the old Lodging Association, and we got to know each other, and been so impressed. And Russell, you still with us, or is your computer giving you?
I'm here. I'm having a little trouble, but I've got it going on my phone for audio and video on my laptop.
Okay. Well, I think the problem is I don't think there's good Wi-Fi at the top of the Golden Gate. So maybe that's, I'm teasing you on your background there. But Russell, really, I almost want you to tell your own story at one point, Russell, because, and maybe each of you a little bit, but independent, as independent gets, got an independent restaurant in Southwest Washington, your own brand, your own creation, and trying to make full service work, having to close fully actually for much of this, and needing the triple P to survive. Each of you brings such different insight to the real world of then letting our GAC team know and leading our GAC committee and how to go. So let's just start with that. Brian, just give the members who don't know you maybe the 30-second who is Brian Marino's in the industry's talk.
Just a guy. That's usually my speech. There's not much to tell. I grew up in Othello, so middle of nowhere, Washington. The potatoes that go to McDonald's, French fries, particularly in Japan, of all places, come from just a few miles down that road. And so we've been in this brand now for 26 years in the same community. I currently live in the Tri-Cities, and then just do a lot of things that don't make any money. I serve on the State Commission on Hispanic Affairs, the State Leadership Board, Hospitality, and a few others. Just trying to find ways to connect voices and figure out how to get through difficult subjects. But the pandemic has been an interesting time, and a chance for us to re-examine what we mean to our team and our people and the lives that we have an opportunity to impact. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And then from Othello to the Puget Sound, Ron, give us kind of your 30-second snapshot of who Ron O is in your business.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Rano. I'm general manager of the Holiday Inn Express in North Seattle, and I've been on this property for about 14 years and about 22 years in the industry. So grew up in Washington and basically out of high school helped my parents run a hotel down in Oregon in Eugene. And hotels have just been a part of the blood, part of the family. And, you know, it's like I've been just finished a term as president of Korean American Hotel Association, and where, you know, it's like just creating networks and community and just try to help our industry as much as we can.
And then again, I guess I love how much you guys are similar in your passion for your community and otherwise, but, you know, as we're popping around to Russell, a completely different area of the state down there in Southwest Washington, and you've been a leader in Clark County. Give us the 30-second about Russell and your business and who you are. You're on mute, buddy.
Thanks for having me on the call. I appreciate it. Russell Brent. I own Mill Creek Pub and Battleground, and we are closed, hopefully temporarily. But, you know, it's a fairly large space, and I'm not sure, you know, if it's going to pencil at 50% occupancy. So, you know, Anthony, I showed you the numbers, and it's really quite a challenge to figure out what the future is going to be for that. However, I got started in the restaurant business like many of us in small business. I started washing dishes and worked my way up, decided I want to make a career of it, went to school, got my undergrad in hotel restaurant management from RIT, and then went on to get my service management master's degree from RIT as well. Worked for corporations and then went on my own and opened up Mill Creek Pub about 10 years ago. And it's really been so much fun for me because as Ron and Brian have said, becoming part of the community is really what keeps restaurateurs going and what gets us excited about serving food and, you know, having people stay in our properties, in the hotels. It's really about hospitality, and it's in our blood. And I'm just so excited to be here this morning and share my passion with you and everybody that's on the call.
Well, Russell, let's stick with you for a minute, and then we'll go to Ron. And, you know, I really love this to be interactive. If anyone has any questions for our government affairs chairs, let us know, because ultimately they're the ones to make sure that we're doing things that actually help the industry, and they're keeping the eye on, making sure our eye is on the ball and we're prioritizing the right things. Russell, full service, along with lodging is just, I mean, the impact has just been, I'm such a positive guy, so I hate saying heartbreaking or crushing, but what has been the impact to you? What's been the biggest challenge to you in trying to get through 2020?
So for me, it was really about, you know, trying to make it work at 50% occupancy. There's a lot of folks out there that are getting, you know, great deals from their landlords where they're letting them pay just the triple nets, and then they're taking the rent and renegotiating the lease and, you know, tacking all that money on the back end of the lease. So going from a 7-year term to a 10-year term, and really providing help for the restaurateurs in the area, because it's, you know, in the full service, it's really the rent that has the largest impact as far as fixed costs are concerned. I'm really excited to be on our Thursday call, and when it's appropriate, I'd like to talk about that a little bit. But the biggest challenge really has been, you know, working with the landlord and then, you know, just trying to stay on top of all of the requirements that are changing what seems like weekly, and just figuring out a way to survive, because we never knew that, you know, the cost of these requirements in the full service industry is about 4% of sales, which in the state of Washington wipes out the average profit. which is also 4%. So when I say the requirements, I'm talking about the additional labor that's required for sanitizing. I'm talking about the purchasing of PPE and all of the other requirements that are doing that on. So that's on top of this, and then operating at 50% capacity. The other part is just looking at the future. Where are we going to be in a month and a half when the weather changes? And outdoor dining is not really as feasible.
If Russell, I'm just going to stick with you, and then Ron, I'm going to bump to you with the same question in a minute. You are an industry veteran. Well, all four of us talk weekly, but if you were going to try to give advice to someone opened their restaurant 2-3 years ago and maybe has been in the industry less than 6 or 7 years, what about your history in our industry has kind of helped through this? What would you give advice to a young owner trying to survive right now?
So that's a great question, and I hate to say this, but get involved. So be part of your Chamber of Commerce, join the Washington Hospitality Association, get the information in a timely fashion, partner with and commune with people that are in the same boat that you are. And it's really interesting to see how Southwest Washington is really coming together and working together as an industry. And that's my recommendation, honestly, is, get involved.
Ron, same couple questions to you. What's been your biggest challenge? You've seen Seattle's occupancy rates drop from 82% to 15-20. In Snohomish County, dropped by similar numbers, and then follow up with, you've grown up in this industry, but we do have operators who are still 7 years new to it. What would you pass on to people facing those challenges that you're facing?
Well, one thing I would say for the lodging industry is, it's like the numbers don't pencil out really right now. It's a tough time, and hotels in general, we've built up a lot of equity and basically hotels are a huge investment. So the advice is to endure. It's like cut your costs as much as you can. It's like it's a tough time for everyone, and it's like right now with PPP expiring, the hope and goal for my hotel and a lot of my friends' hotels is just don't lose money. Do your best not to lose money. But it's like luckily we're an essential business, so we've at least been able to remain open and operating. But a lot of things I would recommend in these times is that we make sure that the guests and customers that we have, we take care of them. We make more of an effort to take care of them, do an even better job than we already are. One thing earlier, Anthony, you were saying that someone was asking about the limited service breakfast buffets. When this first happened, what we implemented is we have a menu and an order slip that when our guests check in, they basically order their breakfast. And basically the time they want to pick it up, my breakfast crew pre-packages everything for them, what they want on their order, and then it's set on a table with their room number and basically at the time that they requested the food. And then if they don't pick up within five minutes, we give them a call. But this is actually when you're talking about food costing for the buffet, compared to our normal buffet, it's greatly reduced our food costs. And it's like because we have lower occupancies, we've been it's like food costs is down, and we have the labor that's able to do this for them. And more, it's like my contractors and my guests that have been staying with us have greatly appreciated it. And a lot of hotels kind of cut their breakfast or reduced it to like a microwave sandwich. And I think this has been a great benefit for us. One more thing that I can also to other people is that, it's like now is actually, as a business, it might be a good time to refinance and do an SBA loan, because right now the SBA, I think until September, they are paying 6 months of your principal and interest on your loan. So if you can qualify for an SBA or a refinance, it's a great opportunity, and it can, it can help you with solvency. So anyway, thank you.
Those are good. Those are good. Brian, I think you kind of have a little bit of different insight probably for us. Quick service has not been quite impacted the way the other two have, and yet you live in the area of the state that I don't think everyone fully understands how bad the virus has hit the Tri-Cities area, Benton, Franklin, Yakima. I'm still talking to a lot of people who had no idea. It's 10, 15, 20 times worse a lot of the other areas of the state. So what's been your main challenges in dealing with this, both in your area and for your side of the industry?
I think the challenge is building community and consensus. And that's when you have an issue that can be as polarizing as this, and lots of questions around the hows and the whys and the tactics. I try and just stay focused on what's within my control. I am the governed. I'm not the governing. So when these policies come out, the only way to sleep at night is to realize that it's outside of my sphere of influence. I can't control whether or not I'm going to have my lobby open. I can't control my landscaping, and I can cut things back to make more room to drive through, and I can restripe to make it more clear that you don't need to park in my restaurant anymore. You can just come through the drive-through, and we're going to turn you out in 3.5 minutes. And I can shift all of my resources towards improving my drive-through systems to keep the lifeblood going and keep all of my people employed, which is what we've been trying to do. And understanding where our customers are coming from. I think that in Eastern Washington, 100 plus new cases per day is not shocking. It's just what we expect on a daily basis. Potato fields, the processing plants just down the road, when they shut down, those are our employees' families, their husbands, their breadwinners that are now being tested and quarantined. I think worrying about what we have the ability to influence, it has really helped us out. We've had one positive case in our organization. We have about 50 employees. And so over the last 4 months, nobody's gotten sick. We've had 3 individuals get tested, and those that we've had to quarantine out of precaution have all come back as negative. And I have to say that, the reason that we had the one person that tested positive is they were a new hire and they were training. We weren't, we don't know where they've been socializing and hanging out, but for us to be able to look at making sure everybody here, when they're within space, changing our operations, even just moving registers, to ensure that people are 6 feet apart and putting the right equipment in each zone that keeps people safe. That's why we're able to keep the virus controlled for our area, for our sphere of influence. So that's really been my advice to folks, is just look at the things that you have the ability to influence, look at your operations, and is this a time that you can innovate? Because I think there are going to be winners and organizations that come out of this thinking, we're doing better than we were before. And my favorite one in Tri-Cities is a coffee shop that we never got to. It's our favorite coffee shop in town. It's local, shout out to them. They're great, but they're not in an area that I typically visit. I don't get over there more than once a week, but they started doing free home delivery on Thursdays and Sundays. And I've never bought more espresso from them in my life because I want to get this product up in the fridge. And so they've said, this has been a real win for them to look differently at their business and figure out how to provide more access to their customers. And I have to think that those are the organizations that are going to come out of this ahead.
I couldn't agree more on the innovation side, Brian. I just think we're going to learn to do things that we probably could have learned 15 years ago or 10 years ago, but weren't forced to. And now that we're being forced to, we're making real change. And I do think it's an interesting time. I want to switch gears a little bit. You're leading the industry decision tree and what we should be doing and where we should be prioritizing. And at a time where there are no right answers, there's no roadmap on how to lead and make the right government affairs decisions in a pandemic. We're also in a time where literally one person in the entire state is making all the decisions in the governor's office, and whatever your politics, left, right, otherwise, that's very unusual. There's no second opinion, or there's no veto, or there's no going around. Literally one person's deciding our stuff. What's that been like? Government affairs team in their decision making in this time frame, and what are your biggest, maybe your single biggest pride point in what the GAC affairs committee and our government affairs teams been able to push? And then, with good, bad, what's maybe your biggest frustration that we haven't been able to get this done yet, or we haven't been able to get through our priorities? Brian, I'll keep going kind of reverse order. What's it been like to run your business and lead this, and give us some insight?
Well, I think your Wi-Fi has been a little spotty, but I think I got the gist of the question. And I think I'll start with a recognition of the government affairs team. I think being able to work with them and their leadership, all the way from Julia down to Katie and everyone else, it really is. I don't have the right word to describe just the quality of their character and the quality of their ability to work with others and build relationships, particularly in this time. And I think that's so important. And maybe my thought about the membership and the government affairs committee is, as you pointed out, this is an unprecedented time where you have one actor within a system that has the ability to control it. And so there have been strong arguments and complaints about the legislative process. The point of it is to have some sort of built-in collaboration. If we don't have that, we can throw stones, sure, and be upset at the process, or we can be the ones that collaborate and do that vetting and come back with really strong recommendations on policies. So when you have an independent operator that is facing, personal financial instability and security and loss, being able to take that story and articulate it in a way that makes sense to the governor's office, I think is our value and what we can provide back to the legislative arm to make, to deliver wins for the association, because that's what we're interested in. My story of having a drive-through and a lifeline and a business model that can survive in a pandemic does not matter in this conversation whatsoever. Help me understand your story. Help me understand your barriers in a way that I can go back and be your champion. That's my big ask.
Do you have a higher pride point in what we've been able to accomplish during this time frame, or a frustration, and what would be your frustration of the thing we've not yet been able to do that you're continuing to push for, or hope we can see through?
I think the pride points it's almost one of those things that's difficult to measure. In physics, a no result is a result, right? If you don't observe something happening, it doesn't mean that the theory was wrong. That might actually prove your theory correct. So when you see that restaurants and hotels and businesses are still open, that may not feel like a result. It may feel like, well, this was my expectation. My expectation was that a reasonable person would allow us to stay in business. But when you take a reasonable person and you have multiple actors putting pressure to say that you need to shut down these industries for these reasons, we were faced with threats. And then also to get a subsequent email saying, you know what, actually the office revisited some of these policies, and no, indoor dining and bars and taverns, and I guess these things can stay open. Those are the kinds of wins that the team has been able to deliver that I think it's very difficult to prove or to point out to the membership that these things would not have happened if it weren't for the fantastic government affairs teams and leadership of the association. My frustration is how we build consensus and collaboration. I think that is, and understanding the whys. I think a lot of folks would understand the policies that are coming out if the why is a little bit better articulated, where the recommendations are coming from. Spent some time with a scientist friend of mine who was walking me through the literature of airflow and air quality, and how in his facility with a few thousand square feet, only a few people could occupy it for a time period of 2 hours before they're sharing each other's air because of the ventilation. Well, that helps me understand the difficulty with schools and with my restaurant, and what am I doing to make sure I have good quality airflow so that my people can be in here for an extended period of time at a lower risk. If I don't understand that from a source that I trust, then that makes it much more difficult for me to understand and get behind. Why is this important? Why is it important that my business is shut down? And how do I get behind not just me as a business owner, but supporting the rest of my community, supporting my fellow Washingtonians, and making sure fewer people are getting sick. I can get behind that policy if I understand the why. I think that's been a big frustration.
Russell, I'm trying to mix this up so it's interactive. What's your take? You're the epitome of an independent operator and the dream of pursuing a small business in the U.S. and in our state, and you've had to shut down, and yet you're one of our leaders in guiding our team. Give our listeners a little bit of a insight to what it's like to do that during these times, and then maybe at the end of that share a pride point and a frustration.
So back in April, it became clear that everything was changing so fast, and that operators, especially small operators that didn't have the resources and were not involved, needed to get the information. So we started a roundtable call where we invited restaurateurs, restaurant operators, local electeds from the county, from the cities, from the state, to join the call and to share best practices and to share information and to talk to the legislators and express our frustrations. And then it's been so incredibly helpful to make that happen. And one of the biggest challenges is that everybody that's on that call, all of the restaurateurs that are on that call, they're all doing the right thing. And the ones that aren't on the call are not doing the right thing. And my biggest frustration, Anthony, is that we have restaurants out there, we have bars and taverns that, that are not doing the right thing. And, how do we handle that as a community? So we've started a Facebook group, and I can drop it in the chat if anybody's interested, of local restaurants with the local electeds, so that we can, continue to share the best practices. My biggest pride point is going to echo what Brian said, and that is the GAC team. So since this all started, I think collectively you guys have probably had, including you, Anthony, probably had 2 days off, and just working around the clock all weekend long. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to you, Anthony, and that is because you've stayed at the table and you've earned a position at the table with the governor. And because of your the respect that the governor has for you and your association and our association and our GAC team, we're able to stay at that table. And I don't think people know how close we were to a complete shutdown a couple of weeks ago. And if it wasn't for you and your efforts in the final seconds, right before the governor had his announcement, that we would have been back to shelter in place. And I just wanted to express that's my pride point. So thank you to you and the GAC team for making that happen.
Thank you. Well, before I get all blushy, Ron, I'm going to get to you. Try to get the spotlight away from me. The same question for you, Ron. You've watched your occupancy drop. This is a family business, unprecedented challenges, and yet you've been helping our GA team lead. What's that been like during this time? And what's a pride point of the GA's work, and then maybe a frustration of the things we've not been able to do yet?
Well, going to the association itself, I think this pandemic, COVID-19, was like the Earth's poles had reversed, and basically everyone was running around going, the sky is falling. And when I looked at the association and how it was run, what was going on, and how the GA team was navigating this chaotic environment, it's like, basically, I was very proud of the association for the level of organization, dedication, and ability to basically circumnavigate this chaos. And it's like it's definitely looking at the entire association itself. I think it's been an opportunity for us to see how efficiently it's run and what areas need to improve, but also the strengths and just the true value of the association itself. And that definitely gives me a lot of pride. You know, it's like, because I did it all. No, it's definitely accolades go to the team, the GA, to you, Anthony, and just to all the members and board members that have made this association over the years. So one thing I was going to say, though, regarding what Brian was saying about innovation, is as businesses, we all think of like our competitors and comp sets. So I was just thinking this. I was thinking, you know, COVID-19 is like our biggest competitor in our business. It's literally taking away business from us. It's taking away opportunity, and we need to adapt. We need to innovate, and we need to understand that this is not something that's going to go away tomorrow. You know, it's like we're a convenience store and they just built a Walmart next to us. So how do we compete? How do we survive? I think if we think of it as more of a direct competitor challenge, I think we will see more opportunities to compensate and to create better business models that will help us survive this.
Do you have a frustration, Ron, of what we've not been able to do yet, or our inability on any particular thing or with the industry during this time?
I'm of two minds. I mean, you know, it's like from a health and safety standpoint, you know, it's like I want everyone to be safe. I want everyone to, you know, social distance and wear their masks, and, you know, it's like limit contact as much as possible. But that in and of itself is frustrating. But, you know, it's like at the same time, you know, it's like our families need to eat, our businesses need to run, you know, we need to take care of our employees, and, you know, that bears the same weight on our shoulders. So it's a very difficult situation where there is no answer to this. We have to compromise and give a little, and, you know, it's like do our best to balance the two. It's very frustrating. I mean, I think that everyone is frustrated because what actions we can take will hurt one or help the other, and vice versa. It's a very difficult time for everyone.
Well, I would like Lex, I'm going to ask the listeners or any of our members to ask questions of our GA chairs. I think a lot of people don't know. We're giving a little time to see if any of those questions come in. We're very, very member driven, and I think Ron, you and I had a lot of conversation during the merger about we don't decide which policies to choose from. The members do. What's it been like to be able to do you feel like we've been member driven during this time, even though we've had chaos and high stress? Do you feel like, and I'm just throwing it out to any one of you, and do you feel like you've been able to get the feedback from members to make sure that we stay on the right track with the right priorities?
I'd like to take a shot at that. So, you know, before I joined the GAC, you know, it was all about me, you know, and my restaurant and how the Washington Hospitality Association can help me. But as we've gone into this crisis, I realized that we're all in this together, and, you know, some operations are doing well, you know, limited service, so not well, but better than others. But, you know, full service is probably the one that's taken the biggest hit on this. And it's really great to see everybody coming together. And as to reiterate what Ron said, is that, you know, the enemy or the competition is the virus and not each other. And the coming together has been great to see.
Ron, I feel like one of the questions I get from lodging folks quite a bit is that it feels like a lot of the focus in this early on has been on the restaurants, kind of the nature of some of the regulations and getting to phase 2 so we can get safe travel occurring. Do you feel like lodging's been getting their fair shake of the GA team's time, and the priority setting is staying in that, or do you feel like you're swimming a little bit upstream? And honesty is okay. So just, but I do hear that question a lot from the lodging operators that aren't involved on a day-to-day basis. Is hearing a lot of restaurants stuff recently. What's going on the lodging side? How do you feel like that balance has been during this crisis?
Well, I think early on, it's like you definitely fought to get hotels and lodging as deemed an essential business, and it's like otherwise that would have been a major death blow to the lodging industry. It's like generally lodging, it's like we're doing our best, and I think that there's a good level of stewardship from the association that's been helping out. It's like, is there more? It's like again, it's like we're an association that does and especially the GA team. We're basically an association that's trying to encourage and guide our representatives and senators and try to get some traction. And it's like over the last 3 years, the amount of influence that this association has garnered and the relationships that they've built, it's like we have skin in the game with government affairs. I think that it's like the association is doing what it can, and again, it's also government policy, what's going on with Inslee, and it's like there's a lot of things that it's like we're definitely pushing up against the tides, and it's definitely an uphill battle for everyone. So.
Anthony, we do have a question from Julie here. Will you describe the relationship with the governor's office as combative, collaborative, or something else in between? And how do you respond to members that think that the association is simply going along with the governor's edicts?
If I could just comment on that real quick. So we 3 or 4 years ago, we took a shift on the GAC and we said we want to become solutions oriented. And Brian, would you mind talking a little bit more about the culture that you've helped create?
I was going to say, I'd like to talk to the second part and let Anthony speak to the first part. In terms of how do we respond to members? And that is a fair question, a question to be asked of when we still do have restaurants and hotels and places that are not able to operate in a way that sustains their families and their employees' families. How can we be comfortable or okay with that decision? How do we sleep at night with that, knowing that our members are? I think what I would ask is, this is an opportunity for us to lead up. And what I mean by leading up is we're not going to get our way every time. And it's no different than when I have brand McDonald's that comes in and says, hey, we're going to do this national thing that makes sense for our national business model, even knowing that your state's minimum wage and your local hiring conditions are going to put you at a disproportionate impact compared to everybody else. You will lose in this situation. My only response is, roger that. I'm going to execute at a high level and build credibility upwards so that when you come back next time with a similar proposal, I'll be able to say, look, these are the results we got. These are the pain points that we experienced. And based on how we still tried to succeed in a time of pressure, I would make these changes the next time. I think that is being solutions oriented and coming to the table and saying, great, we understand where you're coming from. We understand the pressures that you're facing. We're going to be supportive and try and make a best practice recommendation and come to the table versus just saying, no, we don't like this, and hell no, I'm not going to support that. I don't think you build equity. I don't think you build credibility, and you're going to lose no matter what. So would you rather lose and you stood the moral high ground of telling them what you thought about them? Or would you rather say, hey, we came to you with recommendations. Those recommendations were grounded in evidence and research and experiences. And if you still ignore it, show me how a reasonable person can say no to those sorts of things. And then you really demonstrate your ability to come to the table more frequently, and you get opportunities like Anthony has done. I don't think you get those the ability to be in the room unless you have the kind of history and performance that this team has had.
Ron, anything missing to that before I take a stab at the question? Okay.
No, I think you did great.
I would agree with, at the end of the day, we're trying to help the industry succeed in coming up with solutions. And I think we've learned a lot of things the hard way of just being a hell no or angry doesn't help us improve our industry's lot. And that's a tough lesson to learn growing up in an industry where you've learned a little bit. The industry, I think from my perspective, I grew up in it, watching my dad and my uncle and literally living in the restaurant for much of my life. You know, you develop a hardness, a toughness to say no and then start from there. And yet I think when we've said, how do we come up with a solution, we've come up with different answers and I think and redirected. So, Julie, I would say that it is funny. I get the same phone calls on the same day from members, some telling me you're a bunch of brain dead Republicans, you got to start doing it differently. And then other people who think, well, you were appointed by the governor, which I was not, by the way. So apparently it's a myth out there. And therefore I'm the governor's lapdog. And I think the fact that I'm getting both criticisms is probably indicative that we're trying to find the path in the middle to find the best solution for the industry. I would say that probably our relationship in the governor's office is in this dichotomy right now of probably the best it's ever been and the most pressure it's ever been, in that we're having regular dialogue with the governor's staff. I do think there's appreciation for that our industry is in crisis. Look, we lost 152,000 jobs in May. 152,000 frickin' jobs. I mean, that is an entire legislative district. At the height of the Great Recession, we lost 15,000 jobs. Now I'm getting out of pulpit. I'll get off that pulpit. And Governor, every restaurant that closes, you know, we lose $160,000 in taxes. If we want to help the economy back, if we want to help people get back to work, if we want to help get the government out of its tax hole, hospitality is the key, not the problem. And I think that conversation has been better understood than any time in this governor's tenure. And I think the conversations with the staff and the governor have reflected that. But I would also tell you this governor is very concerned, and I think it's legitimate, even though a lot of people want to be afraid about public health and the spread and how many deaths are acceptable when balancing an economy. And I hate to say wartime decisions because I've never been in war, I've never served in the military, I don't want to have any disrespect, but it's the closest a wartime decision a governor's ever going to get between 1,000 small businesses and 100 lives. What do I save? And when does the metric become large enough on one hand or the other hand to go from there? And the governor's got to balance that. If I completely disrespect that challenge the governor has, then it's hard for me to stay at the table. And so we're going to continue to try to stay at the table. We haven't agreed on every decision, but then a lot of the ones we've stayed at the table, even when it hasn't come down our way. I think last week's stuff on the tavern licensing and the winery licensing and Katie's great work is indicative of it. I think our challenge with contract tracing and the contract tracing mandates were reversed and just put that you had to have it available. I think there's some other things out there that's been indicative that by constantly being respectful but putting the challenges of the industry are there. But we're going to get the criticism on both sides, and honestly, Brian, Russell, Ron, that's why we need you. It's going to be so easy for our team to get lost in the woods. You got to keep us making sure that we're doing the best thing for the industry, and I can't thank you enough for your work to do that. And for those of you who haven't got to meet the GA team, you all complimented them. I feel like I'd be a horrible person if I didn't, but Julia, Samantha, Katie, Denny, Kim, John, Amy, Toby, and Joe. Yes, you have that many people working on your behalf 60, 70 hours a week. And they've been putting their heart and soul into moving us forward, and I really do appreciate that. Lex, I know we're coming up to time in our 1 hour podcast. Is there any other questions that I've missed from chat rooms or have come in from operators that Folks, I do see one that came in from an old friend of mine I haven't talked to for a long time. Hi, Dan. One topic that is critically important is consumer confidence. Even if we got to 100%, I'm not convinced there would be enough business to sustain my business. Are there any current stats that show an improvement in consumer confidence? Well, let me tell you what the association is doing on that, and then I will tell you that consumer confidence is changing weekly. And so I think what we can best do from there. Let's start with, that's funny, it's a name from my past. So Dan, I haven't seen your name for a long time. It's good to hear from you. One of the great things that come of this, and it's weird that good things have come from this, but our relationships with the chambers and the visitor convention bureaus, now known as destiny marketing organizations, has never been stronger. And we started a 10 region PR network to get the word out there about the industry and really promote all the good things that you're doing. So the more that you can demonstrate and communicate with your local visitor convention bureau, look what I'm doing, they're going to take that and help promote that in our community. So if you've done something really creative with hotel check-in to prevent less contact, or if you've done something really creative with having people stand 6 feet apart, or other things to make guests feel more comfortable in this weird environment, let your visitor convention bureau know, because they're helping us promote those things. And if you don't know who to contact, let us know. But it's kind of this centralized and decentralized PR network where we're kind of putting together the messaging and the key points, but the local areas are saying, well, great, that message works for Seattle, but it doesn't work for Othello. And then they're helping us tweak the message to be more authentic on a local level. So the best thing we can do is show the public, wow, hospitality is taking this seriously. I'm safe to dine out. I'm so appreciative of all your work. And I got to be honest, in the last week and a half, the shift I'm getting from the general public, just what that comes to me directly, has been immense. Early on, I was getting all the social media pictures of the things we did wrong or the things we were learning or some of the bad actors. Now I'm getting thank yous and thank yous and thank yous for all of your work in the industry doing it right. Those thank yous are going to build confidence. That's why we're also doing that Mask Up campaign, and we'll get that out to everyone, hopefully maybe as soon as Thursday, that we can then spread that news to get that going further. But Dan, I think when we opened, we saw a huge boom in business, and then I think the virus and lack of confidence started bringing that back down. And so we've seen some stops and starts, but I don't think it's permanent yet. And I think the more we work on it, the better we can do. So our focus has got to be, let's do the right thing, the right way, the right time, and then get that to be our brand with the public. The public believes when I go into Ron's Hotel or Russell's restaurant, I know they do it right. And if they know you do it right, they're going to come back.
Anthony, I think that brings us to a close. Any final words from the panelists?
Ron, any last thoughts for our podcast today?
I'm just thankful for everyone that participated, and thankful to all the great teams and GA and Com team. And then one more thing also. One of the things that is coming about that we're doing our best to have the GA team do is using this whole situation and influence of our industry, and basically any sentimentality or basically to garner more support from our representatives and senators. It is a really tough time for our industry, but it's an opportunity for us to build better relationships and help them understand our industry, and hopefully roll back some policies that we weren't a fan of. So I think that there is also opportunity in this.
Brian?
I would just second that. I think people are listening. This is the time to come forward in a constructive way and help them understand where we've been, not just this year, but for many years, and how we can grow forward together. And connect to us, reach out to the team. the more feedback we get that we can share in a positive way, the better. Wear a mask.
Russell, bring it home.
Yeah, so signing off real quick. Hey, we're a membership-driven organization, and I wanted to ask if the attendees would please drop their name and location, what part of the state they're from, into the chat so that we can record it. I'm just curious because we are a membership-driven organization, and I want to make sure that the GAC team is reflective of all parts of the state and not just our own.
Yeah, I think my closing message would be, as you witnessed today, we're member-driven. So if you're frustrated, if we're not on track, that is okay, but I'd rather have you do is get involved in government affairs and help direct us. I mean, I think you're looking at our odd couples here, our odd triple, 3 areas of the state, 3 different parts of the environment, 3 different backgrounds who've come together to make our industry stronger, and I'd encourage others to do the same. Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate all your leadership.